Moji, thank you for joining us on the Channels Book Club. It's really nice to have you here.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. It's nice to be here.
Now, I'm very excited about the subjects that we have today, and I know you can do justice to it.
Thank you.
But before then, let's know a bit about you. I like a part of your story, how you transited from a tech background into education. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes. My mom is an educationist. She was a teacher. She went into Special Education, started her own school, and school has been existing for about 30 years now. So my dad was a banker. So I come from a background of education, and while in college, I had a minor in child psychology, though. That really caught my attention. I really like that. I felt more fulfilled. And while in college, I always worked in nursery schools, part-time, voluntary, and it was something that I actually always enjoyed. But then graduation, started working in IT, didn't have much time for education anymore. But I always knew that this is what I wanted to do. And when the opportunity came, I got married, had my own kids, I always knew I wanted to homeschool them. But then something happened. My son was actually in a school, and I noticed that it wasn't reading. It wasn't, it was maybe about 3 years old then. And I didn't expect him to be a fluent reader, but to recognize certain sounds. But it wasn't doing that. He would recognize it in the school book, but then show him another book that wasn't from school, and then he would freeze. And I discussed this with the teacher, and the teacher was so convinced that he's reading. He's doing well. He's actually doing better than all the other kids in the class. But I knew something was up. Discussed this with my husband, and started working with him by myself, and I actually had to quit my job so I could work with my son.
Whoa.
And this is how this started. And it's because it was very important that the foundation was right.
Yeah.
And couldn't toy with that. And I felt, since I was qualified to do this, let me work with my son. And since I worked with him, he worked, and that actually birthed.
So it all grew on you to start something to help.
Well, it was really more like my friends coming in. Oh, Moji, please, my son is having this problem as well. Can you help? And couldn't continue to do it at home anymore. That's how it started. So it was really more of a passion thing. That I had the opportunity to work with my son and help other kids.
That's such a fascinating story. Okay, so you went ahead and started a school.
Yes.
For young children.
Yes.
Okay, now let's get into the subject.
Okay.
Now, how important is it for children, to develop a reading culture, and how early, should that start?
Reading is the foundation of education. It's very critical that a child read early. Well, at least get exposure to reading very early, because without reading, you really can't learn. Look at put it this way: you want to learn science, you want to learn social studies, you just have to read to understand
reading
those
is
things.
the foundation.
So it's just the foundation. It's basic. There's no alternative to it. It's not like science where, I'm not a science person, I can go into art. Either way, whatever you decide to do in life, you have to read. So it's really the basis of education. So you cannot underestimate, you cannot overemphasize the importance of reading. So it's just so important. It's crucial to the success of a child in school and work.
When you say early, what age? Typically, when should a child start to read?
A child, reading is a process. It's something that starts actually as early as infancy.
Okay.
Talking to your child, don't just change the diapers. You have to actually talk to the child while you change the diapers, while you're showering for them. Babies recognize sounds. They see the sights and all. So these are all prerequisites to reading, actually. And then you get to a stage, like from 3 years old, they actually start introducing the sounds, the alphabet sounds to them. They start associating objects to sounds. Those are all parts of reading. And then by age 3.5, 4, a child should actually begin to read. and being an independent reader by 6 years old.
When you say independent reader, it should be able to read very well.
Should be able to read very
by age
fluently
6.
by age 6. So if by age 7 is struggling to read, it's something you should recognize and actually get some intervention.
Deal with immediately. Yes. You run a school, you deal with children, you deal with parents. What are the common mistakes you've seen parents make that are hindrances, that form hindrances to children developing a reading culture? What are the most common ones you've observed, which parents ought to avoid as much as possible?
There's so many. First, as much as we say reading is important early, don't expect a 1-year-old to start reading and reading well. Don't expect a 1-year-old to start writing. So one of the mistakes we find is that parents tell you, oh, my child is in this school, she's 2 years old, and she's writing her name, she's writing 1, 2, 3 to 500, but does the child really understand what they're doing? So by so doing, you're actually putting a lot of pressure on the child. And the child will see reading or learning as a chore or something to do, they have to do to get your love or to impress you, as opposed to something that is pleasurable, something that they love to do. So pressure is number one. And then number two, some mistakes parents make is getting overly anxious. So a child has stumbled on the word, and instead of letting the child continue the story, it's like a beginner reader, like a 4-year-old is just starting to read simple letters, like simple sentences. A cat fell down, and he called the cat Kit fell down. And some parents will, what did you call that? Sound it again. Come on, call it. You shouldn't do that. Let him finish the story. As long as the misspoken word has not changed the story, let it go. When it's your turn to read, then you say, the cat fell down. Without telling the child, see, I called it cat, I didn't call it Kit. The child himself would know, okay, it's not, I made a mistake there. The next time the child is reading, you find the child has actually corrected himself.
I'm hearing you say, don't put children under pressure.
Don't put them under pressure.
Too early.
Too early. Don't put them under because by putting them under pressure too early, you're letting them actually shy away from reading, because they see it as something they have to do to impress you. And if they don't do it properly, they feel they failed you. And
that may be counterproductive.
Be very counterproductive, yes. Another thing is, don't also, if a child has asked you for help, don't put it back down. As Nigerians, we tend to put the question back on the child, as in, what do you think? The time will come for you to be able to do that. But an early reader has asked you, Mommy, how do I pronounce this? Don't pronounce it for the child.
Don't say, how do you think you should pronounce it?
Yes, sound it now, bring the sounds together. Don't say that.
Okay.